I would like to make a comparison between the way the United States has handled the COVID-19 pandemic, both preparation for and managing it, and on the other hand, how the United States has managed a very similar problem of military preparedness and handling military confrontation and military activities. There's more to be learned from a comparison of these two than you might imagine. Let me explain. It is not profitable for private capitalist enterprises to produce both the needs to prepare this country for a virus and the needs to prepare this country for military activities abroad. Here's the problem, very simply. Let's start with the virus. What you need, and we've known this for centuries, what you need to handle a virus which has attacked human beings for as long as there's a species called human beings, you need to have testing to see who's got it and who doesn't, and you have to have the equipment and the arrangements to prevent people from infecting one another. Old problem, well understood. So in order to have the public health protected, you would have to have, in the United States, a proper stock of tests, masks, gloves, ventilators, hospital beds, the whole business of managing a virus if it should attack. Private companies cannot afford to produce huge quantities of these, to stockpile them around the country so they will be available where the populations are that will need them, and then to hold in warehouses in those areas stocks of these things they've produced for months or years until they are in fact purchased to deal with a virus. There's too much risk, there's too little profit, the companies don't do it. Now here's the parallel with defense. The same thing applies to guns and bullets and missiles and tanks and aircraft and all the rest of military equipment. Doesn't pay a company to produce jet fighters, for example, stockpile them in hangars around the United States, waiting for the next military engagement when the Army or the Air Force or whoever comes and buys to use that equipment. Too risky, may have to wait a long time. There are more secure profit opportunities. So if you leave capitalism to itself, to the private enterprise driven by profit, you will not get the production and stockpiling of the needed equipment to combat a virus, and you will not get the production and stockpiling of the military equipment to fight wars. Now let's see how the two problems have been solved or not in the United States. Let's start with defense. The government comes in and solves the problem. It doesn't say so, but here's what's going on. It isn't privately profitable for the private producers of guns and missiles and tanks. So the government comes in and says to them, I will buy it from you as fast as you produce it. I will take, that I being the government, I will take the cost and the risk onto myself. I will stockpile these weapons around the country, indeed around the world. And I'll maintain them and I'll make sure they don't get dusty or rusty. And if they go out of date because new weapons are developed, I'll scrap them all and I'll buy new ones from you. You will make a lot of money because I will give you a lot of money for this military equipment. And so we have guns and planes and missiles and tanks stockpiled all over the place. Now compare medical preparation. Nothing. The government didn't do it. The government didn't do in the medical field what it did in the military field. It didn't buy and stockpile testing equipment or the components of tests. It didn't stockpile and buy masks and ventilators and hospital beds and ICU units and all the rest of what we need. So there wasn't any. The government didn't come in and admit private capitalism can't or won't do it, so we'll do it. So the question becomes, what happened here? Don't we need to be protected from a virus at least as much as we need to be protected from some military activity directed against the United States? Of course we do. Any child would understand this. But the government didn't act. The government didn't do in the medical field what it does regularly in the defense field. And why not? And the answer is the medical industry doesn't want it. They can make more money doing other things. And so they want to. They don't want the government to come in and buy all that equipment. They don't like the image of the government making up for the failure of private capitalist enterprises to do what public health demands. The very image that we need the government to secure public health because private enterprise in capitalism can't or won't do it is one they don't want to see underscored in our society at all. They found other profitable ways to produce medical equipment that would be bought by the public, the doctors, the hospitals, and so on. And so we didn't prepare. The government didn't act in medical area the way it does in the military. And it didn't to accommodate the preferences of the private medical establishment, the doctors, the hospitals, the drug and device makers, and the medical insurance companies. Those four industries acting together made sure, as they always have, that the government is kept out of medicine, that the government shouldn't be a socialist medical care provider. No, mustn't happen. Lots of money spent buying lots of politicians. So the United States hasn't got the kind of medical system every other advanced industrial country has, despite the fact that we in America end up paying more for medical care than anyone else in the advanced industrial world. We have a medical system limited and constrained by a private capitalist system that dominates and that did not permit or allow the government to do for the medical preparedness what it does regularly for military preparedness. Is it crazy to have a system like this? You betcha. And the conclusions to be drawn from that, I will leave to you. This is Richard Wolff for Democracy at Work.